Hello, welcome to Pyramid Knits. My name is Liz. I am a knitter and a natural dyer. I am coming to you from my natural dye studio, also known as my back porch, just outside of Taos, New Mexico. It is Labor Day here in the US, which means day off work. So I am sitting out here in my dye studio. I'm extracting a sage dye. I have a lot of sagebrush in my yard as I live in northern New Mexico out on the mesa, the sagebrush sea. Thankfully, sagebrush makes a lovely yellow dye and you can get some really nice greens out of it too. So I am monitoring my sage dye that's extracting over there on my burners and sitting here at my table. Getting a little bit of sun on my arm. Might need to adjust. Still a little warm, but it's still morning. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's not too hot. There's still some coolness on the air. My hair is down at this point. By the end of this podcast, it might be up. We'll see. Yeah, so I talk about my projects here, my knitting projects, natural dye plans, etc. I do have an Etsy shop and an Instagram, also Pyramid. They're both called Pyramid Dye Works. This is Pyramid Knits because this is where I talk about my knitting. But I do let you know what I'm doing with my dye pots as well. And I do have some of my own yarn on the needles right now. Working on a cardigan, which I will show you in a second. So yeah, I really didn't plan anything today. So this is going to be very stream of consciousness. Also, I picked a terrible day to record outside. The people like across the way are doing some kind of construction, and periodically there's just like a really loud pop. Like it's got to be like a nail gun or I don't know. Something is being collided very loudly. And it's random and it makes all of the dogs in the neighborhood bark. So yeah, let's go sit outside and record a podcast, Liz. That sounds like a great idea. So yeah, fingers crossed. It hasn't happened yet, but it probably will. And that'll just keep my editing self busy this afternoon. Oh, nice little breeze coming through. Oh, that feels lovely. Almost feels like fall. Almost. It's too warm, but you can feel it. Fall is like the best time of year here. I'm very excited. Honestly, I could take or leave the summers. Go figure. Anyway, let's get to it. So what have I been doing? What am I doing? So last time I came to you, I was working on a test knit. I am still working on this test knit. I have until the end of this month, I think. I need to double check that number, that date. But I have made progress. I have made quite a bit of progress. And I've even like set this aside, honestly, more often than I should have, because I've just had some other things that I wanted to knit and I don't want to feel pressured about it, but I'm going to end up feeling pressured about it. Anyway, I am working on the Joni pullover from Flossy Knits. It is a test knit. She has already released it as a cardigan and now she's doing the pullover version, which has a V-neck and some really cool like textured side panels. And I have it here. I don't like, where are my needles? I don't want them to fall out. Okay. Okay, cool. So this is where we are at now. Last time I had just joined for the hem. It's a split hem. And I was just like gushing over the details on it. I have knit these whole side panels. I have now split for the arms, and I'm starting to work up one of the front sides. So I thought I was real smart and I had the pattern memorized. I did not. So there's definitely like a little section in here where I've just like totally omitted some rows of the chart, and you still can't see it. I don't know how you still can't see it. There's like enough texture and enough stuff going on that you can't even hardly tell. You can tell because the bobbles get like too close together around in here-ish or something. Yeah. I realized that, and I contemplated ripping back and fixing it because it's a test knit, but it wasn't anything wrong with the pattern. It was totally just me not looking at the pattern and continuing knitting on my couch. And I envisioned myself ripping back, and I was like, I will never finish. I'll just stop knitting this. So I did not rip back. I just kept going. And the fact that like I can't even really see how badly I messed up, except for the fact that the bobbles are a little too close together, is like kind of amazing. So I'm happy about that. We're carrying on. And yeah, I am now working on the front left. So you can see it's going to be a V-neck here. Yeah, that seems about right. Ooh, that's going to be really nice. I'm excited. So the yarn I'm using is John Arbon Yarnadelic. That is the yarn that Claire, the designer, also used. I had some in my stash and saw she was making this into the tester call, and I was like, I have to do it. So I'm doing it. Yeah, test knits. It's the first test knit I've ever done. It's definitely, it's made me have to pause a lot more and like come back to the pattern, because I don't know if it's the pattern that's not making sense or it's me that's not making sense. Like hence the just skipping over rows of the chart for some reason. Yeah, so it's definitely made me like stop and second guess myself. Like I've been making little notes of things that I might want to suggest to the designer for just like clarity's sake and just kind of the way things are worded. But I don't want to send it in until I like go over it a few more times and make sure. Because whenever I was first joining the hymns, I had so many of those notes on my pattern, like, oh wait, no, you missed this. This part doesn't make sense. Like you need to adjust this. You know, this is like one stitch off. No, none of it was true. It was all me. All me. And it wasn't even the pattern's fault. It was just kind of a complicated bit of the pattern to work, and it required a lot of explanation and a lot of charts for a lot of different sizes. And I just got confused, and that just happens. Not the fault of the pattern, but I would say this is not a beginner pattern. I will say that. Just for, you know, the details. There's a lot of detail and a lot of thought that went into this, and some very lovely tailoring, it seems, so far. And yeah, as a beginner, I would not have made it this far. I also know just not to rip back anymore. I hate ripping back. Yeah, I would like abandon a project rather than rip back. It's terrible. Even a few stitches. Oh God. I have a pair of cabled socks on the needles right now that I haven't worked on in forever. They're Oktoberfest socks, and I finished one. The second one is started. I had intended to knit them for Oktoberfest last year, but I think I didn't even finish the first sock last year. Excuse me. So I was like, oh, well, I'll get them finished for Oktoberfest this year. No. Also not. Next year. 3-year socks. That sounds good. Oh, anyway, the point being, I made a mistake in the cable on the sock, and I'm like at a point where I have to figure it out and like figure out how to either rip back or fudge it. So I just haven't touched it in 6 months. Amazing. Anywho, yeah, so I'm very much enjoying this. The yarn is lovely. I do find it to be quite splitty, which doing all of these baubles with a very splitty yarn is very annoying. Very, very annoying. But they're real pretty, so it's worth it. And now that I'm onto the front panels, and I've done some of the decreases here for the armhole, the actual length of the pattern part I'm doing is very short. So I'm only having to do like one bobble every time I do a bobble instead of like a gazillion. I'm just seeing that this one popped to the back. I have trouble with that sometimes too. It's really annoying. Anyway, I'll deal with that later. Yeah, so the Joni pullover, it is going. It is lovely. After holding it up like this, I'm like super excited to wear this. It's gonna be really nice. So I have until the end of the month to finish this. I can do it. I can do it. My next whip. My next whip requires explanation. Last time I talked to you guys about wanting to knit the Corin cardigan from the Crayabea, which is like a in-between season summer cardigan, basic lace. As you can see, I cast on. This is my own hand-dyed yarn. It is naturally dyed with Osage orange and indigo. The color white is honeydew. And I was really excited to knit this in this colorway because I had just happened to see like some of my laundry on the bed next to my basket of yarn. I was like, oh hey, that matches real good with like a couple of my outfits. It'd be nice to have a little cardigan to go with those. So yeah, so I cast on and I started knitting and I made it this far. And then I thought to myself, this seems small. This does seem small. Like even on the ribbing, I was like, this seems small. But I often think that, and once you get into it a little bit, it's like, okay, no, it's fine, it's fine. It was just all bunched up on the needles or whatever. But I kept going through it and I was like, no, this is real small. Like even with a button band, like that is not gonna, that's not gonna fit me. And I was like, what is going on? And then I went and I remeasured my swatch. I say remeasured because I don't think I ever measured it in the first place. I knit it, I blocked it, I wrote down on the pattern a gauge, which was the actual stitch gauge of the pattern. I tend to do that because patterns will always put your stitch gauge in 4 inches, you know, so many stitches over 4 inches. And I just like to break that down to like stitches per inch because it's just easier for my brain than to sort of make adjustments on the fly. You know, if I know like I have 5 stitches per inch and I'm like, oh, this is feeling like too wide or too narrow, I can kind of adjust that quickly, right? Anyway, so I had done that on the pattern. Not my gauge swatch, that was the gauge of the pattern. So I cast on according to the schematic. Not my size. My size according to the schematic, not my size according to the gauge. Yeah, so according to the schematic, I think this was gonna be like 44 inches or 45 inches, somewhere around there. Total bust circumference. And my bust sits at about 44, you know, give or take. You know how it goes. So it was going to be a pretty snug fit, but I was like, it's lace, so it's fine. And like, I don't want it to be like super loosey-goosey anyway. So I cast on that size, not realizing that I hadn't actually measured my swatch and written it down. I had just written down the gauge of the pattern on the pattern. So anyway, measured my gauge and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be knitting like 3 sizes larger. So this was like a 34 inch or something. It's like a full 10 inches too small. So yeah, check your gauge, people. Check your gauge. So also while I was knitting it, I was really kind of starting to second guess the color. Not for, matching the other clothes that I have that I thought that it would go well with. It totally would go well with. But just like next to my skin, I was like, is that just gonna wash me out? It just seems like it might not be right for my skin tone. I don't know. And I was like, maybe it shouldn't be an all over thing. Maybe it should be a hat. Maybe it should be more of an accent. I don't know. I love the color, but I just started to second guess, like, it's so light that it might look weird on my complexion. I don't know, what do you think? Maybe it looks great. Maybe I'll edit this and I'll be like, oh my God, it's amazing. It like matches my eyes or something. But I don't know. I just got scared. So I had originally done my swatch in a different colorway, same yarn base, but a different colorway, because I just already had that wound up and I was being impatient. Yeah, so I had originally done my swatch in this other colorway, which I also dyed. And this is dyed with Osage Orange and Cochineal. This was Osage Orange and Indigo. Yeah. And I knit this up and I was like, oh, I really like that color. Like, and I kind of held it up to on my shoulder like this. And I was like, oh, that would actually go really well with my skin tone. And like, obviously this is my range. Like the fall warms is my thing, which I think is why I started to get scared by the spring grains, because I'm not a spring, I'm an autumn. Anywho, so I was like, well, it didn't fit anyway, so I'm just going to take this as an opportunity and a sign to knit this cardigan in the brick colorway instead of the honeydew. So I recast on, and I am well on my way. Here we go. Yeah. So I've gotten a good bit of progress done on it, and I have not been knitting on this for that long. I took this to my knit group yesterday, and like I didn't even stay for that long. I had to run errands and stuff too. So, but yeah, like seriously, like my knit group and watching a movie last night is almost all of this lace. It's crazy. It's going real quick. Very pretty. I'm very much enjoying this. So yeah, let me see if I can hold these up next to each other. Like, very awkward, but you can see like how much bigger this one is. Yeah, I mean, that's like, you're looking at a good, 5 inches there probably, which is going to be 10 inches around. Yeah, so measure your gauge so you cast on the right size. And now that I've showed this to you guys, it's just been sitting off the needles on the cable. Now I can unravel this and repurpose the yarn for something else. Yeah. So this is going. I am very excited about it. I think it will also match the outfits that I've been looking at with this. Because they're very green heavy, the other things I was looking at, which is why I thought, oh, the green will look great, but red is complementary, so I think that this will look lovely with them too. Yeah, so I also need to finish this by the end of this month. That is a self-imposed deadline. Yeah, so I am going to be vending at the inaugural Taos Wools Fest in the first Saturday of October. We used to have a Taos Wool Fest that was here in town for, oh gosh, like 38 years or something. And then of course, COVID rustled everything up and it was canceled for a while. And then there were issues with permitting or something. I don't know. Anyway, they ended up moving down to Santa Fe. Excuse me, down to Santa Fe, and now it's called like the Mountain and Valley Wool Association Festival. I don't know. Anyway, it's big. It's a big one. They hold it down at the county fairgrounds in Santa Fe now. There's lots of animals, lots of fiber, lots of yarn. I mean, it's the whole thing, right? But I loved it more whenever it was in Taos and it was in my park, in my little hometown park. Anyway, so point being, now there is a place in Taos called Taos Wools. It is a weaving specific shop. It's like weaving yarns, tapestries, rugs, looms, classes for weaving, all that stuff. Anyway, the guy who owns that place is organizing a new sort of smaller and differently focused Taos Wools Fest. So the previous Taos Wool Fest, that's now the Mountain Valley Wool Association Festival that's held in Santa Fe, is much more like what you would expect from a yarn fest, right? Yeah, very much what you would expect from a yarn fest. There's a lot more raw fiber and livestock side of it, I think, than some of the other wool festivals I've been to, like in cities particularly, because we're still very rural. You know, there's a lot of farms around here. Anyway, what am I getting to? Point being, this new Taos Wools Fest, it's a lot of artistic vendors. There's a lot of weaving artists. Obviously, it's pretty weaving centric, honestly. But the history of this area and like the cultural history and traditional crafts of this area is weaving. It's very, very deep weaving roots here, for a lot of reasons, but a lot of reasons being the sheep that fared well here were just really, really rough. Like think Icelandic plus, like it's rug wool. It's rug wool. So it makes great rugs. It makes great wraps. Think the Indian blankets, right? Horse blankets, all that kind of stuff. So that's really like the tradition here. So there's a lot of that. I'm going to be vending at the marketplace on Saturday. There's other events going on sort of like throughout the week, and displays going on at some of the galleries around town with textiles and weavings and things like that. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm very excited and excited to, you know, just get more involved in the local fiber shed community. Which, speaking of, I totally forgot to talk about this. I recently went and did a fresh indigo harvest at the dye garden of a friend of mine. He is the pigment hunter. I'm pretty sure I mentioned him last time. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, I'll put it down here. He does natural paints and pigments, as opposed to natural dyes on textiles. He does paintings and canvas and stuff like that. And he has a dye garden and planted a bunch of indigo, a bunch. So I went down there and we had a little indigo harvesting party and a little fresh indigo dyeing session. And we all kind of learned the whole process of harvesting, processing, doing fresh indigo dyeing, which I had never done before. I've only ever worked with already processed indigo. Yeah, so that was great fun. And I'm gonna include some footage of that at the end. Yeah, it was super fun. It gave me a lot of ideas for working with fresh indigo, but you do need a lot of material, a lot, which, I mean, he has a lot of material. I don't know how much he'd be willing to part with, but you know, we could discuss that maybe next year. I'll buy a plot of his garden or something for fresh indigo. Anyway, yeah, so that was super fun. And yeah, feeling like I'm getting more involved in the local fiber shed. Yay. So those are my whips. I know, I feel like I should keep talking about the local fiber shed now. Well, I'll come back to it. Let's finish up the whips and I'll come back to it. 2 more whips. So this is my next whip. This was an impulse cast on last night. I've been wanting to cast it on for like a while now. It's from Pacific Knit Co. It's the Mountain Doodle. It's a Colorwork cowl. It's worked in the round. And it is a mix and match sort of thing where you get a whole bunch of different charts that all you can swap out with each other. They all work together. So you just kind of like pick the next chart you want to work and like pick whatever colors you want to use. And then whenever you get done, just pick the next chart you want to work. And she's got like a whole series of them. There's seasonal ones. I think she's coming out with like a Halloween one right now that's, you know, like ghosts and pumpkins and things. But anyway, I bought the Mountain Doodle a while back and I've been wanting to cast it on. So I finally did last night. I was wanting some knitting that was like more cerebral. I didn't want to just keep going back and forth and not think about it. I actually wanted to think about something. So I cast this on and I knit through 2 charts. And I decided I'm just going to sort of stash bust my natural dyes that I've done and just do whatever I do. So this first chart, some cute little mountains. The white is just a bare undyed rowan that I had. And the gray I dyed with avocado. Very cute. And then the next, the little leaves, little yellow leaves. I have the brown is dyed with walnut and the yellow is dyed with sagebrush, which I'm extracting right now. So yeah, it's just kind of like a mix match of yarns. The gray is actually a DK, the white is a worsted, and these are both fingering held double. But one of them is like a proper woolly wool that's like meant for color work, and the other one is a sock yarn that's like very much not meant for color work. And you can definitely see how it's not like sitting really nicely. You can definitely see both strands of the yarn, whereas the brown just kind of blends together. And that is because that is a superwash nylon blend. Superwash wool nylon sock yarn. So it doesn't want to grab onto anything, which is real annoying, but whatever, you can still make it work. And I'm just trying to, you know, be scrappy with it and go for like some fall colors. That's kind of the plan. The next one, I don't know. I think I'm feeling maybe some blues or greens, blues and greens maybe. Let's see. Yeah, so that was a fun little impulse cast on, and we'll just see how it goes. I will say the circumference is very annoying. That's just because of the needle size that I picked. Frankly, I picked a US 6 because I figured I'm gonna be like in a DK worsted area, and that a 6 would probably work good for both. But it's kind of a tight circumference, and I have the long needle tips, so it's a little bit annoying, and I'm not quite sure what to do about that. If I want to like actually buy new needle tips, I don't want to do that. Because I had cast this on before, like a month or 2 ago, and I cast on 4 repeats of the chart on size 6, like it was the same thinking, right? But I was like, oh, I'll cast on 4 repeats, and it was just like way too wide. It was way too wide. So this time I cast on 3 repeats of the pattern, like of the full pattern length, chart width. chart width. But it's like a little bit narrow. It's a little bit narrow and a little bit hard to work. I'm working it just as a traveling loop kind of situation. Maybe I just need to put a longer cable on it and go for magic loop. I think if I went for a 16-inch circular, I would need the shorty tips. I kind of measured it, and I think this is like maybe like a 12 to 13-inch circumference. Like it'll probably stretch pretty easily to like 14, but like a 16-inch, I think it's even going to be too stretched out to like work. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I don't know. This might just languish. This might be as far as it gets, but it's really fun. Yeah, I love all of her little doodle packs. And I saw she has been doing this really cool thing. It's always sold out though. They're actual like doodle card decks, and they're just little charts, little mini charts, and it's a card deck of like themed charts. So you can just like shuffle the cards and like pick a card. I love it. I love the concept. I mean, same thing I'm doing. I'm just like picking something, but just the fact of like picking it out of a deck seems like more fun. Yeah, because like seriously, Colorwork cowl on the round is like kind of my happy place. Because it's fun, it's engaging, it moves quickly. Yeah, it kind of just, yeah, this makes me happy. I wanted all the funky Colorwork cowls. So I think I need to buy everything that she's put out. Because they're all such cute little charts. Oh my god, and they're all themed so cute. So like with this one, this is the mountain one. So there's a bunch of different mountains. There's some different leaves. There's a bunch of different like conifer trees. There's sort of geometric things. There's little pieris. I think there's fish. There's like a rain cloud. There's some snowflakes. Yeah, you can really just mix and match. She is also Pacific Ditko. She is based in the Pacific Northwest, hence why the mountain has a rain cloud. Which I used to live in the Pacific Northwest, so I really appreciate a lot. Yeah. Oh, last whip. It's one of my socks that I've been working on. I have a bunch of socks. I'm just going to show you this one. But I keep working on this out in public, and I keep getting compliments on the yarn, so I just wanted to give it a shout out. I bought this whenever I was up at Yarn Con in Chicago, and this was the fun fancy sock yarn that I bought. It is from Northwoods Fibers. The colorway is Oceanography, which I'm really like. It's so much fun because it's all these, you know, it's like the deep dark ocean colors, and then all of a sudden you get a little tropical fish, and it's like doo-doo-doo. Like, oh, you spotted a fish. Doo-doo-doo. So I'm very much enjoying knitting with the yarn. It's an engaging colorway to knit with. I keep wanting to see the next little color blob come through. There's a little white one coming up, and then there's like a bright green one coming up after that. Yeah, super fun. Yeah, I'm knitting these socks for a friend, but I just wanted to say basic 3x1 sock, German short row heel, toe up, nothing too fancy. I'm doing 72 stitches because it is for a man person. And yeah, just shout out to that indie dyer up there in the upper Midwest. Everybody loves your yarn down here, man. It's great. So yes, now natural dyeing. Here's my sagebrush that I am dyeing with right now. I've got it over in the pot behind me. I'll turn you guys around in a minute so you can see it, which will be instantaneous for you. The wonders of time travel. So yeah, after that is extracted, I'm gonna dye up some of these skeins that have been mordanted here in the sage. I'm gonna treat some of them with ironed to make them a lovely green. Also on the natural dye topic, I showed you guys these last time. These were my 2 new colorways that I had up in the shop on my US sock base, which is a 90% superwash targi and 10% nylon. It is grown, spun, and dyed in the US. And this is the honeydew and brick colorway, which you will have seen earlier on my on my Corin. This is the honeydew on my worsted base, which is a 100% non-superwash targi. And then you can see here's the honeydew on the sock base, which is a superwash, so it's a bit more saturated. I do not have this one up in my shop yet on the worsted base. I'm working on that. I have all the fingering sock yarns up in the shop right now. And also on worsted, the brick on worsted and the brick on fingering. And honestly, this one looks a little bit more saturated because I left it in the dye pot too long. Oops. So the worsted came out a little bit darker than the fingering actually, but they're both still really beautiful and have that kind of mottled red, reddy orange brick. Yeah. So there's 2 new colors up now. Also on the sock base, I have Iris, and this was dyed with cochineal and indigo. And I keep wanting to say cotton candy. It's not, bubblegum. And this was dyed with cochineal. It's just like the perfect pink. I can't believe like how perfect of a pink it is. Anyway, so these are also up in the shop now. Come and get them. So yeah, all 4 colors that are up right now. I will have some, I'll show you a little bit more with how my sage dyeing goes, and stick around there to the very end to see the fresh indigo harvest and our little fresh indigo dyeing circle. It was good fun. And yeah, thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.